Over the past few decades, mindfulness has become a powerful addition to counseling work. With its focus on non-judgment, observing instead of reacting, and paying attention to the present moment, many therapists have eagerly adapted it in their clinical practice. Mindfulness-based Stress Reduction, or MBSR, is an exciting program that brings to light the benefits of mindfulness. Recently, I took part in an 8-week MBSR program, and from this experience, I learned how to better utilize mindfulness both personally and with my therapy clients. I want to introduce you to the instructor and facilitator of that program, Dr. Bob Stahl, who has taught MBSR for 30 years and has changed the lives of many students along the way. He also wrote a workbook that provides important guidelines and exercises for successful practice. And as a bonus, at the end of the interview, Bob will engage us in a brief meditation activity. So what's been your experience with mindfulness? Perhaps you've taken an MBSR course that Dr. Stahl facilitated. Please share your insights in the comment section, and let's begin.
Well, I'm very excited to introduce Bob Stahl, who is the director of Mindfulness-based Stress Reduction program that I attended over the fall. He has been teaching this for many years, and my hope today is to interview Bob, kind of get a sense of what this program is about, but then the broader aspects of mindfulness as well. So welcome, Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Scott, and happy to connect with you and talk.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So first of all, if you would, kind of just please describe the main components of the 8-week MBSR course.
Yeah, so MBSR is the acronym for Mindfulness-based Stress Reduction, and it was founded at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center in 1979 by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. And the MBSR program came, John was actually a molecular biologist, but he also was a meditator. And in a meditation retreat, this, I don't know what you could call it, like an inspiration arose within him about his love of meditation and his love of medicine. And then he kind of just sat with it. And then this idea arose within him about mindfulness. Why not bring these together? And it's actually interesting because in Latin, word for medicine is medere, and it means to bring things into order, to bring some harmony. And so he felt there was some connection between medicine and meditation. And so this idea arose within him of starting a mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And as he reflected on this, he said to himself, I think this could work very well at UMass Medical Center. And then this idea arose, it could actually spread and become in many hospitals, and it could go all over the world. And sometimes in having some conversations with him, he'll say that this is kind of like a deja vu, because it actually did happen. So the 8-week program is a class that he developed of meeting once a week for 2.5 hours. There's a progressive curriculum of teaching about mindfulness, looking at, as well as didactic presentational themes of looking at perception, how we see things, stress reactivity, then becoming mindful and practicing what's called a mindful mediated stress response, bringing mindfulness into communication, bringing mindfulness into what we take in our day-to-day life. It also includes an all-day session in the 6th week to deepen the practice of meditation, of mindfulness. In addition to the class time of meeting once a week for 2.5 hours, participants are practicing meditation at home as well, with guided body scan meditation, sitting meditation. We also introduce some movement of lying yoga, standing yoga, walking meditation, and bringing our mindfulness into our day-to-day life. So the 8-week program involves both meeting in the classroom, or in this case on Zoom, as well as bringing our mindfulness at home in our day-to-day life. And so this is a little bit of the scenario of mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Excellent. So Bob, what are the prerequisites for being an MBSR instructor?
Yeah, there is definite prerequisites, and One is that actually you have actually gone through an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction class so that you actually have an experience of what it is. And in addition, to have taken at least one 5-day or more teacher-led mindfulness retreat, so that there's a commitment of really understanding this practice from the inside. Because one of the deepest prerequisites in teaching mindfulness is really being a practitioner yourself and embodying the mindfulness practice as a way of life inside your own self. And so this is the beginning prerequisites to entering into the stream of becoming a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher. And as you enter into that stream, there's more retreat requirements. Ultimately, you have to have completed at least 4 5-day or more teacher-led silent mindfulness retreats, and there's a number of different trainings, such as the Foundation, which is a 10-week program. Then there's a teaching advanced intensive TAI. There's mentoring. There's group mentoring. So there's a number of different training practices, and where I belong, or where I teach out of, is the Brown University Mindfulness Center. So people could actually do an internet search for Brown University Mindfulness Center, and there's all types of information about teacher training requirements. There's also, just to say, because I know you're in Southern California, there's also a place at UCSD, a Center for Mindfulness, that also does teacher training, that also has a very good program. So they're available within the United States, as well as, of course, internationally. There's training institutes all over the world now. Kind of amazing. And
Definitely.
43 years, I guess you could say.
Wow, wow. So a lot has happened in that time as well. And I've had a chance to, as I mentioned, attend your 8-week class, but also the weekend courses at Commonweal for several years. And I've noticed, Bob, that your use of poetry as a facilitator has really added a powerful dimension to your MBSR courses. So could you discuss this and other elements that have made your MBSR courses stand out over the years?
Well, thank you. I don't know about standing out, but I find that poetry is a very skillful means of implementing from time to time. Sometimes the poets say the unsayable, but say it in such a beautiful way, capturing moments of life and experience. And so, yeah, through the years, I think, when I first met John Kabat-Zinn and Saki Santorelli, and Saki Santorelli was after John Kabat-Zinn retired from UMass Medical Center, Saki Santorelli was the executive director for many years, and also did a lot of teacher training. Both of them really, when I started taking their early trainings, they used poetry a lot, so there's definitely some inspiration that I got from them. But I've always loved the mystics, the poets, and in its right moment, a poem can further open up a poignant space. And so, even to this day, whether I'm teaching MBSR or I'm teaching meditation retreats, I'll definitely indulge with some poetry to help further deepen the heart.
Okay, and could you maybe just mention maybe the names of a couple of poems that have really been dear to you over the years?
Yeah, well, there's so many, but maybe I'll name a few of the authors, like Kabir, Rumi. There's an American poet, Dana Falls, another American Palestinian poet, Naomi Shihab. There's this wonderful Native American poet who's also a poet laureate, Joy Harjo, William Stafford. Oh my gosh, there is so many poets, both from ages ago to contemporary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Bob, what would you see? What are some of the challenges inherent in instructing an MBSR course?
And actually, I'll just pause and say, and of course, Mary Oliver, got to get her in there too. And I think that, well, there's different types of challenges. Number one is to show up, and and so that's our practice, is to be here with whatever the conditions are. And sometimes there's different obstacles, like you're offering the class, let's say now we're doing it online, and our neighbors decided to get out their chainsaw and chainsawing right next to you. The lawnmower goes off or the dog's barking. So how do we work with the conditions that there are no perfect conditions? There's definitely some that are more suitable than others, but sometimes we can't be there. So how do we work with what's here in the moment? There's a certain sense when you first start teaching MBSR to really learn the curriculum. And it takes probably about 5 years to really get more seasoned and experienced. And, and I think within that learning, the temptation is to fill and do other things. And so there's a sense of learning how to trust the curriculum, to trust the space. And, and it's tried and true for, there's been 43 years in the making, and there's a lot of evidence-based research that's revealing its efficacy in working with stress and pain and illness. But I think that sense of showing up, and of course there's different areas of competency, like our embodiment of the practice, how we are relationally with our students, the didactic presentations, the guidance of meditation. So these different domains that we also want to cultivate, and those can be developed and honed and deepened as time goes on. And maybe there's one expression about in being a parent that you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be good enough. And so maybe also with an MBSR teacher, maybe we don't have to be perfect, but we have to be good enough. And good enough to at least know that here are some areas that I need to develop and hone my skills more. So there's a commitment to one's own professional and personal learning and continuing education. And, and being careful of just when you think you have it, you may not. So I think it's good to be humble and not, and it's actually, in many ways, how do I get out of the way and let the teachings of mindfulness come through me? Because it's really not about me. It's about the teachings of mindfulness. And so how do I, bring it with humility and with as much wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and, the nuance of you're in this classroom. What's really interesting about this is that every time I teach a class, kind of like a trail guide, like when you get to the trail head, you've been down that trail a lot, but you don't know what happened that night. You don't know what happened, so you can't always be for sure the trail is going to be exactly the same. So I feel like the trailhead of each class has a new composition of students, different personalities that are different from any other class I've ever taught, and the personal histories that people are living with. And so how do I meet this and to show up as best I can? And paying attention to what's actually happening with these people, not other classes, not other things, and so forth. So these are some of the nuances and challenges and learnings in teaching MBSR.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Bob, I want to shift a little bit from the MBSR experience and curriculum just to mindfulness itself and ask you a few questions about that.
Sure.
So Bob, how would you say that mindfulness is different from, say, relaxation and breathing techniques?
Yeah. So actually, in the mindfulness meditation, let me just say this: in meditation practices, there's sometimes there's a number of different practices, but I'm going to talk about two broad categories. One is the development of concentration, and one is the development of mindfulness and insight. So in concentration approaches, it can offer it can be very beneficial. It can offer a sense of some calmness, tranquility, relaxation, serenity. So it can be it's a calming agent for the development of concentration, because we're working on developing our to become one-pointed with the object that we're bringing attention to potentially have a sense of unification that again offers a sense of tranquility, serenity, calmness. And so this is a very good meditation. But when we don't do this meditation, perhaps what has been irritating us continues to be there. And so insight or mindfulness practices, we're using some concentration to help settle the mind, but rather than becoming at one with it, we're becoming aware of the workings of our mind and heart. We're beginning to see the places within us that we're getting activated, or old painful feelings are coming up, or how our mind is wandering off to here and there. So we're beginning to get more insight and understanding into our own conditioning, our own stories, our own narratives, this deep embedded habitual patterns. And so this insight begins to help us to understand, potentially to make some very deep changes within us. And so you could say, on one hand, each of these practices has its use. For example, if I have, from a medical point of view, if I have acid indigestion, yes, it might be helpful to get an antacid tablet because that will help neutralize the acid. But what would be, so that's more of a calming agent, helping to settle into calm. But let's say from a mindfulness perspective, if we began to understand what it is that I'm doing or eating or dealing with in my life and how it's affecting my belly that's causing my acid indigestion, that would be even that much more beneficial. They're both beneficial because one at least alleviates the symptoms, but in mindfulness we're looking at what is the cause of the symptoms. So there's two different approaches to meditation: a calming agent that has its great use, but also the insight agent that helps us to understand more deeply the places where we get caught, where we're not seeing clearly, where we're holding on, where we're pushing away.
Exactly. And I can definitely identify with the concentration aspect of that as well. So it takes a lot of concentration. It really pays off, from really engaging that as well. So I want to ask you, in what ways, kind of a two-parter, in what ways have you found mindfulness to be helpful in your own life, but also in the lives of your students as well? So, so how would you?
Yeah, I think maybe we teach best what we need to learn ourselves. So I'm a long-time practitioner of mindfulness for many, many, many years at this point. And I just can't imagine my life without this practice of mindfulness. And I think I'd be crazed. And, on the practical side of things, mindfulness has helped me to be more present with what's actually right here and to attend. Helps me to see more clearly, that I mentioned a little bit earlier, the places where I'm getting caught and stuck and activated, and beginning to investigate more my own story, my own narratives, and as I understand them more, I'm less held hostage by them. So there's been incredible blessings practicing mindfulness for myself, and I've seen actually the same with others, whether it's being able to lower one's blood pressure, since I work in a medical system, or perhaps developing my relationship with my high blood pressure that does need medication, but I meet it now in a much wiser way, or learning to meet my physical pain in a wiser way. Maybe there's some decrease of the pain, but there's a way to work with the pain, working with my anxiety, working with an illness, working with stress and irritation, as I get more insight into my own inner dialogue, my own narrative, my own story, and I beginning to see the places where I myself am getting caught and beginning potentially in time to get less caught. And so there's enormous benefits that I've seen through the years in working with people with stress and pain and illness. And I think, for that matter, if there's anything I think that will help this world, that we're living in such a time of polarization of view, that we forget that we are all part of one shared humanity, one shared world, one shared universe, and that if there's anything that will help us to understand this more, it's, I think, developing greater awareness and greater love. And to me, that's the definition of mindfulness.
So, Bob, what would you say would be some of the best practices, ideas for kind of mindfulness for beginners, people who are just starting out with this?
Yeah, this day, it's so incredible in this time. I mean, you just internet search mindfulness and there's a million things come up. And so there's so many things, from these apps to classes. It's so interesting. When I first started doing this, which was over 30 years ago, if I asked how many people in a group of 25 people in a classroom, how many people heard of mindfulness, I might only get 2 hands raised. And now with a group of 25 people, if I ask the same question, maybe 23 people would raise their hands and 2 would not have. So there's so much more understanding about mindfulness. And My sense is always to start off in a way that is workable for you, whether it's sitting 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But, in the early years, when we teach the mindfulness-based stress reduction classes, many people had never meditated in their life, and they would take this class, and it's been very helpful. So I would also recommend a mindfulness-based stress reduction class. But there's a number of different apps and different things that you can use. Yeah, mindfulness has become also, I guess I'm just thinking more of the commercialized aspect of it. Like, I saw an ad for mindful clothes. By the way, this is just a jacket. It's not a mindful jacket. The guy wearing it is trying to be mindful. I'll say that much. But, there's a whole commercialization. So I think I would invite students and anyone to discern wisely, maybe ask someone that they know that is a mindfulness practitioner, what app would you recommend? So that there's some type of credibility, because it's fair to say there is a lot out there. And it's nice to be offered, to be pointed in a direction that you feel is pretty credible and helpful.
Okay. And one question that's always kind of on my mind in terms of which is more common, engaging in mindfulness with eyes open or closed?
Yeah. The truth is, it doesn't matter. And so some, it's interesting. Some schools say you need to have your eyes partially open. Some say you need to have them partially closed. And in my school, it's like whatever works for you. There's like some people like, should you have your hands this way? Should you have hands that way? Should you be able to sit? Even the meditation posture. I mean, if you can sit like a pretzel, great. But the most important thing in posture is to be comfortable and awake. And so I would invite the listener to sense into their body, getting into a position where you could be comfortable and awake, because that will be the best position for you for the time being, because even the most perfect position sooner or later will not be. But start off trying to be comfortable and awake and continue on. But as far as the eyes go, really, there's not any. I mean, there's certain schools that people have strong opinions. The eyes need to be closed, or some need to be open. But my experience is, do what you feel safe. Now, if you're having your eyes closed and you're feeling scared, that's not going to be helpful. I want to support sensitivity for ourselves. Meditation is a very vulnerable thing. We're beginning to turn inwards, and so creating a space where you can feel safe and is very, very important.
So, well, thank you for answering these questions. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope others have as well. I'd like to end this interview by engaging directly in a mindfulness exercise. So, I'd like you to just kind of walk us through this, and kind of, I'll hand the ball to you, and let you take that from here, Bob.
Thank you. Or you could say, hand the gong. So we often sometimes like to ring the gong at the beginning, or definitely at the end of a meditation, just so it helps just to acknowledge this time spent. So I would definitely like to invite those that are wanting to practice right now to get yourself in a position where you can be comfortable and awake. And that could be standing, that could be seated, it could even be lying down. So whatever is supportive for you for the next 5-6 minutes, to just be present with yourself, and maybe taking a few moments to get yourself settled into a position. And taking a few moments to welcome yourself. It's so rare that we take this time to be present. There's a very beautiful poem by a Chilean poet, Pablo Neruda. It's called Keeping Quiet, and he speaks about what would it be like if the whole world could just stop, even for 12 seconds. And within this poem he says, if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps this huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. And perhaps the earth can teach us when everything seems to be dead in winter and later proves to be alive. And so let us enter into the huge silence. This is what mindfulness practice is about, or one aspect of it. There is the mindfulness we can bring into day-to-day activities, such as chopping our food and sweeping the floor, folding laundry, being mindful of different day-to-day activities, and there's the formal time of stopping and being present like we're doing now. And entering into the huge silence so that perhaps in time we can begin to understand ourselves, begin to make peace. So just taking a moment and welcoming ourselves here, and then beginning just to settle a bit and just checking in with your own body and acknowledging how you're feeling physically, and perhaps in time different thoughts and emotions may bubble up, and acknowledging how you're feeling mentally and emotionally, just like a meteorologist reports the outside weather. We're like an internal meteorologist in reporting and acknowledging the inside weather of our body, our thoughts, and emotions. So just a sign of checking in, mindfully being present. Just with honesty, just acknowledging how you're feeling in the body, sensations, any thoughts, any emotions. Just to acknowledge, no need to figure out or analyze. Just what's here in the body and mind. And taking as much time as you like with this checking in. This might be, again, the first time today stopping and feeling into our body and mind. And if you'd like, you're welcome also to just shift attention. You've done enough of the mindful check-in, and just for a little bit more, bringing awareness to either the breath or listening to sounds. Or perhaps feeling different contact points and sensations in the body. I always like to offer a few different options to bring attention to. If it's the breath, being aware normally and naturally as you breathe in and out, focusing in the body where you feel the breath to be prominent and distinct. Or if it's listening to sounds, being aware of any sounds within the room or outside of the room, or in your own body. Sounds coming and sounds going, just like the breath comes in and goes out. And the third option is to be aware of different physical sensations. Itches and aches and tingles, warmth, coolness, different contact points. So there's 3 different options that you can bring attention to. You might want to try each one first and then settle with the one that you feel most resonant with. Each of these helps support the steadying of our mind, building concentration, and each of these begins to help us get more insight into the nature of change. For the breath is ebbing and flowing, different sounds coming and going, different sensations arising and passing away. Teaching us how to go with the flow of life. Perhaps in time learning how to not take it so personally. All things change, being present. So beginning just to focus for a little bit with one of those objects and kindly attending. So we even practice with the attitude of kindness, not judging ourselves, criticizing ourselves. No doubt our minds will wander off a lot. And once you realize that you're not mindful, you are again, and then returning your attention back to one of the options. Again and again, this is how we build the muscle of our concentration, just like going to the gym and the repetition of the weights builds muscle mass, the repetition. of bringing our mind back when it wanders off, builds our concentration, being present. Gently attending. And now as we gently come towards the end of this practice, and know that you can continue on as you like, learning a few of the steps of the practice, but as we come to an end, feeling into our heart region, may we open into our own hearts with kindness, with compassion. Sometimes due to our deeply embedded conditioning, we can be so hard on ourselves, so judgmental, so critical. And so we can begin to interrupt this deep embedded conditioning of these stories of our own deficiency by bringing greater awareness to this and beginning to instead cultivate some compassion and kindness for ourselves as it understands this embedded conditioning does not really serve our own hearts or one another. It's inviting in a sense of compassion and great kindness for ourselves. And letting ourselves just take a little rest in this right now, in this heart of compassion. We don't have to do anything, but just to receive it, to take rest in it, this heart of compassion, of loving kindness. That we can rest in it, and that all beings can rest in it, that this earth can rest in it, that this universe can rest in it, this how vast the field of kindness can be. Taking rest in benevolence and great kindness. And may all beings discover the gateways into their hearts and grow with greater wisdom and compassion. May all beings dwell with peace. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Bob. I'm really hoping that listeners will really get a sense of this, not only mindfulness, but of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And thank you for all your many years of helping so many people within this. So you take care, and I wish you peace as well. Thank you.